Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm recording this on October 22nd. So what I want to do is I want to go over a little bit about Trump and what he did over the weekend with McDonald's, and also go over some of the breaking news for the day. Please make sure you subscribe to all my channels. I have 4 channels on YouTube. I have Brighteon, Bitchute, and Rumble. Please follow me on all these channels. I do get censorship through YouTube, so it's important that you follow me on all the channels. All the links are in the description of this video, so please just go into the description box below the video and click the link to subscribe. Also, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and follow my advice in terms of health protocols and how to improve your longevity and improve your immune system. I have a lot of different products on my store. You can buy them individually, or you can buy them through the longevity boxes or the anti-aging boxes. It's up to you. You do get a discount if you buy the anti-aging boxes or the longevity boxes. Please go to my store and get the collagen peptides. This helps with bones, with joints, with your skin, with your hair and your nails. It has a great amino acid profile. It's a powder. You mix it with food or with filtered water. Sometimes people even mix it with milk or a smoothie. Take it every day and it'll improve your skin, your nails, your hair, your joints, and help with your bones. So please go to my store and get the collagen. Also, on my store, I have structural nail silver soaps. I have 5 different varieties. This one is lemongrass, and this one happens to be charcoal tea tree. But I have 3 other varieties on my store. So please go to my store and get the structural nano silver soaps. This will neutralize pathogens. It doesn't have any harsh chemicals in these soaps. But if you go to the grocery store and you get Dove, or you get something from Procter & Gamble or Unilever, they do have soaps that have a lot of chemicals in it. So get these great high quality soaps that are made from structural nano silver. And I also have a lot of different products that can help to boost up your immune system. So please go to the store and get the magnesium and zinc. Helps to boost up the immune system. We're in the cold season in the United States. If you're not feeling well, take a double dose of magnesium and zinc. Like, for example, take 1 in the morning and maybe 1 in the evening. But you should be taking magnesium and zinc every day as just as a daily routine for your health to boost up your immune system. But if you're not feeling well, take a double dose. All right, with that said, let's go to Fox discussing Trump at McDonald's.
Well, Election Day is only 2 weeks away, and today Vice President Kamala Harris is taking a day off the campaign trail, but former President Donald Trump is going to court the Latino voters down in South Florida and then head back to North Carolina.
A brand new poll numbers show Trump making major gains with Latino and Black voters.
Aisha Hassi is so lucky because this morning she is in Doral, Florida, where Mr. Trump will participate in a Latino voter roundtable in just a couple of hours, and she joins us live. Aisha?
Hey, good morning to you. Yeah, that event's going to happen right behind me. And, you know, this event is curated for the Latino community, the Hispanic community, but it really could resonate with any American out there that is trying to achieve the American dream. The former president is going to sit down with Hispanic community leaders in the Miami area and discuss his policies about the economy. And this is going to be talking about how they can buy a house, keep their neighborhood safe, find good paying jobs, an opportunity really for generational change here. And he's making a concerted effort, guys, to reach out to these Hispanic voters, and it's resonating. Take a look at this new Suffolk poll. Shows that he's leading Harris amongst Latino voters in a head-to-head here. He's trailing, though, behind Harris among Black voters, but again, put this in perspective to back in 2020 when he got 8% of the black vote to President Biden's 91%. So he's actually faring off a lot better this year. And then, of course, he went to that Pennsylvania McDonald's over the weekend and worked the fryer. And it was a troll of Vice President Harris attempting to connect with the working class by saying that she used to work at McDonald's. His visit has gone viral now, with a lot of folks saying that, you know, they really connected with him watching him do that. Guys?
Aisha, I got a question for you. Because Donald Trump's event at the McDonald's over the weekend got so much publicity, and you know, it even drove a number of people on the political left crazy because they said it was a staged event. Of course it was a staged event. It was a campaign event. Because it worked so well for him. Is he planning more of that kind of stuff?
Here's the thing, guys. It was closed. Can I just go back really quickly? You said it was, yeah, people were freaking out because it was a staged event. It was closed, and you have to close and shut down a building because this is the former president who, by the way, has had 2 assassination attempts. You can't just have the doors wide open and security not involved. And, you know, obviously vetting people who are coming through the drive-thru. You got to keep it a safe situation for him. So that's a part of it that doesn't get talked about either.
Right. Do we put you in the median of a highway?
I know. Same thought. I'm very nervous.
Is it incredible? I don't know what's
It's
amazing.
a little loud out here.
Yeah.
Lots of motorcycles.
Are you saving on parking? Is that it?
Are you sponsored by Focus Factor? Because it was amazing. He was,
I'm going to go get on a moped now.
I know. It seems like
I should be doing a great job.
Get your motor running. The reason I mentioned the McDonald's event is Piers Morgan has got an item in the New York Post today, and it says Don's special sauce. He said libs lose minds over Trump's McDonald's visit. Piers says because of this stunt, he may actually win the election.
Well, I wish he'd go. Well, he actually did go to that grocery store, remember, and he gave the mom $100. I think it'd be good if he went around the country to different grocery stores and did like moms in the markets.
Well, because
give them $100 for interviewing.
A couple of
Say,
people.
how much did you spend? Because the guy with his energy bill went from $2,100 to $15,000 a
Right.
month.
Well, I think what they're upset about is not that it's a political stunt, because all politicians do political stunts like this, is that he's better at it than her.
Right.
And every time you see her at a grocery store or something, I thought it was so weird when they did the whole Dorito thing. It just wasn't natural for her. But for him, first of all, you can't outshow a showman. This is what he's been doing his entire life. And I think they are supposed to be the relatable ones, and the billionaire is outshowing them.
Right. And to that point, Lawrence, there's something that Kamala Harris has been talking about over the last couple of days, just to show how effective that event in Pennsylvania was. You know, she says, and this proves that Donald Trump won the day yesterday politically. She says there are things that Donald Trump says, that will be the subject of skits and laughter and jokes, but words have meaning. These are things that are at stake. And each time Kamala Harris reminds voters of the stakes, it's a sign that a certain thing that he's doing is appealing to a certain part of the electorate. It's a really small part of the electorate that is still undecided, but they think it's funny, and they think it's like, oh look, he made fries, and it's like he's approachable.
Like
He's
not touching the human hand, putting the fries.
right. That's good.
What food do you like? I like it all.
yeah, and he was on our show on Friday, and we asked if he was going to wear the paper hat. He did not. But he did say he was going to go heavy on the salt.
He did.
You know what? And it's just relatable because we all go to McDonald's. We know that he loves, and we like the fact that most presidents would have these, you know, trays, silver service pizzas. And he's like, bring on the McDonald's. It's just relatable. He goes to North Carolina to talk to the victims of Helene.
It's a big, important story. It hasn't been covered much in media. It's almost like these folks have been forgotten. We were there on the ground covering what was happening. There was an emotional moment, though, with the former president. And here's a little bit of that.
I had in the back of my mind, I even made a comment to somebody. Trump would just show up. Trump would just show up. We need it. We need that shot of hope in the arm. We need that. know we're gonna be okay and not forgotten. Thank you.
And I believe that you can serve as a great inspiration to this community right now. And the reason being is, I think God's given you an indomitable spirit. Do you mind if I pray for you? Yes, I ask that you would anoint President Donald Trump and give him a spirit of wisdom and understanding and insight as he moves to lead this nation back to greatness.
I'm with you, and the American people are with you all the way. We're going to continue to be with you. I will support and totally complete the rebuilding of every region and town and city that was devastated by the hurricane, and I will slash through every bureaucratic barrier that you're having already and having problems with. We're praying for you, and we will not forget about you. We will never forget about you. We're going to be working with you for a long time to come to get it back together.
So I think it's important. Remember, he showed up day one with Samaritan's Purse,
Yeah.
with Franklin
Franklin
Graham.
Graham.
He said, listen, this is what they need. This is as far as I can go. So he beat the current administration there by 4 or 5 days. And then he went back, and he's going back tonight at 7 o'clock. So he's going to be going to North Carolina to, yeah, it's a battleground state. Absolutely. But number two is, you can always just sit there and stay in Charlotte and say, I feel bad for those people in the mountains. He goes to the
But
mountains.
did you see the question that was posed to him? One of the reporters said, do you feel like this is going to impact the election with everything that's happening? He goes, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, Aisha has.
Yeah.
He said, I'm not worried about voting, but but you know, his campaign is,
Mhm.
and they want to make sure that these people have provisional ballots or some type of easier access. You were there. It's going to be impossible to get down those roads, right? You're not thinking about voting.
Some of the folks still don't even have power.
Right.
Well, he said this, he says it's vital that we not let this hurricane that has taken so much also take your voice. You must get out and vote. And he says, if you're displaced, you can get a ballot to your temporary location.
Right. In the latest NBC poll, it is an absolute tie. She has 48%, he has 48%. But the key is 4% undecided
Mhm.
or will not vote. So what he's trying to do is he's trying to persuade the person who is less likely to vote, and the undecided, hey, just be better than her.
Yesterday's Washington Post poll, 4-point edge for Trump in North Carolina with registered, 3-point edge with likely. So that came out yesterday.
Huge.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I mean, wait,
All right, so the market update. So if you look at the dashboard, the S&P 500 is trading at 5,800 and almost 40. It opened up down from the close from yesterday, but it is moving upward. The oil market is rallying. It's trading at 71.75 for WTI. And the Euro USD is trading at 1.08. VIX is going down, so as the VIX is going down, typically equities are moving upwards, so risk, high risk is somewhat abated. The VIX was trading at around 20, 21 for the last few sessions, so now it's trading at 1871. So risk, individuals are starting to take risk. Now, what I like to do is go to the Israeli news. This was published about 37 minutes ago. And before we do that, I'd like to just plug some products here. Because we're in the cold season in the United States, it's really important that you stock up on drops and lozenges. I have structural nano silver drops and lozenges. So for the lozenges, it's in a 21 count. I have Manuka honey, structural nano silver lozenges, or I have 3 different versions of the drops in a 100 count. Drops are smaller. The honey and lemon, cherry, and blueberry. These drops and lozenges are made from structural nanosilver. The moment you have that irritation in your throat, take the drops or lozenges right away to neutralize the pathogen, maintain that mucosal barrier because of the secretions, and that way you're mitigating the pathogen. So take it right away. It's really important to take it right away. All right. get a couple bags for your household just so you have them on hand, because the cold season, we're in it. There are certain areas of the country that, you know, have a decent level of infection going on, and it's very important to just mitigate it. All right. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver lozenges and drops. I also have products that help with your cardiovascular system and your joints and bones. Vitamin K2, MK7 is on my store. And this vitamin is dual purpose. It'll help with your cardiovascular system and help with your bones and joints. All right. It's synergistic with D3, vitamin D3. And so how do you use vitamin K2 for, let's say, cardiovascular health? You take D3, K2, all right? You take turmeric, ashwagandha, C60, nattokinase, and omega-3, and C60. They all work synergistically to bring down the chances of building up plaque formation, but also reduce plaque formation. So it's reducing the chances of new plaque formation and bringing down blockage that you already have. How does it work? Well, with K2 and the D3, what will happen is it will bring out some of the calcium deposits that are in the plaque and back into your serum level, all right, and then you excrete it out. The C60 will soak up free radicals to prevent oxidation of LDL. The turmeric and the ashwagandha reduce inflammation at the intima level of the vascular system, because it's through inflammation that you have buildup of plaque. And by bringing down inflammation, you're reducing the chances of continually feeding a current plaque formation. The omega-3 and the nattokinase will bring down LDL levels. And it's through LDL that's oxidized from free radicals where you get a buildup of plaque, because plaque starts with inflammation, where there's a little bit of a tear or some sort of disruption with the barrier of the intima of the vessel, and eventually LDL becomes oxidized and gets into that area, gets in between the thickness of your blood vessel and builds up plaque through a foam cell process. Macrophages detect that there are LDL that's been oxidized, and it tries to eat it up. Once that macrophage eats up that oxidized LDL, there's a process where that macrophage turns into what is called a foam cell. And that's a buildup of plaque, and then you get other calcium deposits in that region. So it's really important to take K2 to reduce your risks of cardiovascular disease, but you need to stack it. And to stack it, you stack it with D3, vitamin D3, C60, turmeric, ashwagandha, omega-3, and nattokinase. All right. And by doing that, you are bringing down the plaque and you're reducing new plaque formation. In terms of bone health, what you want to do is K2, you take with D3, stack it with also the collagen that I talked about earlier, and make sure that you also take calcium, either calcium supplements, or like drink milk, right? That has, calcium, and then do resistance training. And by doing the resistance training and having the K2, the D3, the collagen, and the calcium that you're ingesting either through supplementation or through milk, what will happen is you're strengthening the bones and joints. So this is a great product. It works really well if you stack the way I told you. All right, so please go to my store and get the vitamin K2. And lastly, like I said before, vitamin D3, it stacks well with K2. In addition, vitamin D3 helps to absorb calcium. It's a gene expression cofactor, so you get better cellular processes going on in your cells. And when cells need to go into apoptosis, vitamin D3 helps with that, especially if the cells are infected. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the vitamin D3. All right, let's play what's going on in Israel. This is the latest.
Shalom from Jerusalem. This is TV7's Israel at 4 update. As we're set to deliberate the latest developments here in Israel, throughout the region and beyond, with chief focus today on the diplomatic visit, of course, by U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, the situation vis-a-vis Lebanon, as well as the Islamic Republic of Iran, with a pending strike by Israel in the next several days. It's always important initially to remember how this war began. 382 days ago, on October 7th of last year, the Islamist Hamas and its terror affiliates in the Gaza Strip launched a surprise onslaught on southern Israel, declaring war by perpetrating a massacre, murdering some 1,200 mostly Israeli civilians, wounding over 4,800 others, and kidnapping roughly 250 people, including elderly men, women, children, and infants. 101 of them remain in Hamas captivity to date. The subsequent day, on October 8th, Iran essentially joined that war when it greenlighted its proxy in Lebanon, Hezbollah, to launch cross-border attacks into Israel. Since then, Hezbollah has launched over 12,000 projectiles towards Israeli territory, and not Hezbollah alone. Additional Iranian proxies from Syria, from Iraq, from Yemen, including Iran proper, when it launched a second barrage of ballistic missiles earlier this month. Let's now turn to our TV7 editor at large, Mr. Emil Owen. Emil, what can you update us with on the latest, of course, starting with the arrival of Washington's top diplomat?
So obviously fighting goes on. Yesterday there was a very respectful funeral for the late Colonel Ahsan Daksa. He is the fifth full colonel to have been killed. 3 of them, 3 brigade commanders were killed on October the 7th as they rushed to try and save the civilians along the Gaza border. A 4th one was later killed in the fighting in Gaza. And now again, Colonel Daksa, a very honorable armor brigade commander, was killed in Gaza as he left his tank to inspect the situation.
If I may interject, just to highlight, indeed, Colonel Daksa was a very notable commander with a promising future. He joined the defense colleges, which he left in order to fight, as you noted, on October 7th, saving multiple lives. And he has survived by a wife and 3 children. A painful reality, a sacrifice that, although we're willing to pay for liberty and the future of the states, it is nonetheless a painful sacrifice.
And it seemed as if the entire nation mourned with his family and with his Druze community at the Dalit al-Carmel in the northern part of Israel. And the fighting goes on in several sectors in Gaza. It doesn't seem to be having any respite, even though, as the US terms it, these are not high intensity operations, but rather only counter-terror operations. But obviously, when the IDF leaves a sector, the terror group comes back, and then there's no real difference between the various types. Now, if you listen carefully, even though there's a lot of gunfire and then rockets raining down on Israel and the blast of successful intercept, you can hear the whispers of the diplomats. And there are two American diplomats, two Biden administration emissaries now in the region. The most senior is Secretary of State Antony Blinken. It seems as if the flip side of early voting, of mail-in voting, is a last effort to get any sort of diplomatic success, a deal, especially in Gaza, but also perhaps by Amos Hochstein, the mediator in Lebanon. He is traveling there. Secretary Blinken is supposed to hold at least one round of talks in Israel before he goes on to some Arab destinations.
Indeed. Well, let's turn to our next guest, named Professor Uli Rosenthal, formerly Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. It's good to see you, Uli. I'd like to ask you, since, as Mr. Owen mentioned, Secretary Blinken is here to double down on the administration's efforts to reach some type of resolution to the various fronts, not necessarily only to the Gaza Strip and Lebanon, but a broader resolution at a time when, of course, White House Special Envoy Amos Hochstein traveled to Beirut. He met with Prime Minister Najib Kati and the Speaker of Parliament, Nabih Berri, during the course of which he highlighted Washington's aspiration to see a revitalized UN Security Council Resolution 1701 implemented in a manner that would then also require the tangible enforcement to ensure that the Islamic Republic of Iran would not be able to entrench militarily along Israel's northern front, namely by means of its local proxy, Hezbollah.
Yeah, well, perhaps allow me to say, to make a few remarks on the terrible message we got here too on the death of Armed Brigade Commander Ehsan Daksa. I was with a high-level mission. I was in Gaza in end of July, beginning of August, and we met Ehsan Daksa there, and I vividly remember, of course, it will not get out of my mind that in the small talk which we had also there, he asked me where I came from, what I had done. I told him, and he said, well, wonderful to hear, because I would like very much to get to Amsterdam, the capital of the Netherlands, to visit the kennels there together with my wife and 3 children. And you can imagine how the message came home to me and also to my dear wife. And we are very sad about it, I have to say so. And also the other members of our high-level mission, several retired generals, also from the US and the UK, all have shared their sadness in our app group. I don't want to leave you out of this story. Now, with regard to the situation in the Middle East, in Israel, Hamas, Hezbollah, the visit of both Blinken and Hochstein to the Middle East, I can only say from the European end that while a couple of times I said to you in this show that the priority in Europe would be definitely with Ukraine and Middle East following only suit. The situation is a little bit different now, and there is a keen attention to what is happening in the Middle East, more than I saw a couple of months ago. Ukraine is dragging on, while the Middle East is considered indeed to be a very, very turbulent and risky affair. When I look at the visit of Blinken and the US message that they want to get 1701, the United Nations Security Council resolution, again operative. I also noticed that from the US end, they are stressing the need to disarm Hezbollah. Now that is of course a wonderful suggestion, but it's better to look at the reality right now. And in that respect, when I talk to you about, when we talk about Europe, of course, there is also this impetus on the part of France, which has also had a special relation, at least according to its own ideas, with Lebanon. And there we see how difficult the situation is, because on the one hand, France tries to back the US in their effort to get to a ceasefire and what have you, and the acceptance of 1701. On the other hand, France is at the moment very, very, very much anti-Israel in all its activities, with President Macron being the front runner. So that is
my
situation.
observation with covering this for, I don't know, months, since October 7th of last year. Or maybe it was October 8th. I think I started covering it the day after or 2 days after. But the point here is I've been covering it for over a year. All right. And I just feel as though the international community doesn't really want to solve the Iranian issue, even though they say that Iran is close to nuclear weapons and they're an existential threat for peace in the Middle East and yada, yada, yada. But when you have the ability, or you have the means and the reason to go and stop their nuclear capability, stop Iran's nuclear capability, why isn't the international community more forceful on doing it? It's as if they're just forever kicking the can down the road. And so, going back to my previous recording about the leak of the intel that the strike plan for Israel on Iran seemed to have been leaked by the United States. Now, who leaked it, why, I have some theories, but as time has gone on and I've thought about it, I feel as though what has happened is there's an element within the Pentagon, element within the Defense Department, maybe even the State Department, where they want to try to circumvent the Israelis from actually striking Iran. Now, then you have to ask the question why. Is there elements within our government that are pro-Iranian? It's very disconcerting.
That's from our angle.
Thank you, Professor. I'd like now to turn to Washington, D.C., where we're joined by retired Brigadier General Mark Kimmett, formerly an Assistant Secretary of State for Political Military Affairs, as well as Senior Officer in U.S. Central Command. It's good to see you, General. I'd like to hear your 2 cents regarding the various deliberations of the American diplomats, both Blinken and Holstein, namely. Do you see them bringing a message from the United States of a certain final push in a very complex reality at a time when the United States is nearly 2 weeks out from the November 5th election?
Well, first of all, let me echo the comments about Colonel Doxa. I think it's staggering to understand that there have been 5 brigade commanders killed in this war so far. That demonstrates that the IDF is an organization that leads from the front. We have not had that level of casualty, since probably Vietnam. So it's a compliment to the IDF. It's a compliment to the leadership that is shown by the senior officers, and one that all good armies should emulate. On the other hand, our diplomats are not doing all that well. I think this notion that Tony Blinken is in Israel right now to try to resurrect the ceasefire talks, I think that's an appropriate verb, resurrect. And the only resurrection I'm vaguely familiar with is about 2,000 years ago. And I would suspect that he has as much chance reviving these talks as Amos Hochstein does of trying to reformulate 1701. I think you mentioned it. This is in many ways simply a political maneuver on the part of the administration. It's the old British expression, we must be seen to be doing something. And the operative word is seen, because they're certainly not going to be doing anything.
Indeed. Well, Mr. Olin, when we're talking about the final stretch of the current administration in Washington, the last time around, when it was an Obama-Biden administration, there was a final push right in between the November elections and the transition of UN Security Council Resolution 2334, which naturally tried to reinforce the illegality within international law of Israeli settlements in the disputed previously known territories of Judea and Samaria. Now I'm hearing various elements in Washington of an attempt behind the scenes to emulate something of sorts that would call specifically for a ceasefire and would highlight certain ingredients within such a resolution, with which I must note this resolution is not yet finalized, so we need to wait and see how this develops. But what can you tell us about the various efforts of the current administration to reach a certain foreign policy achievement?
But there's a lot of difference between an outgoing incumbent like Obama, who knows that his successor comes from the other party, and that his party's candidate, in that case Hillary Clinton, failed. And we have to see, of course, whether Biden's successor is his own vice president or the other guy. Now, this is probably more for leaving a legacy than having some practical effect. Especially if United Nations Security Council resolutions do not carry sanctions or any other operative addendum to them. They are being heard. Also, at that time, the recipient of the good news, quote unquote, was the Palestinian Authority headed by Mahmoud Abbas. 8 years later, he is still around, Abbas. However, the problem here is to get some traction with Hamas, with Hezbollah, which is not Palestinian, of course, and having gotten rid of Yahya Sinwar, who was a decision maker who refused to negotiate in the final months of this effort. Now we don't know who is going to make the decisions at Hamas, whether they have any political will left by Sinwar that they must follow. It is the time is too short to get anything between today and November the 5th.
Well, as I know, the construct of the Islamist Hamas organization, naturally, it will establish a certain transition council to include probably Khalil al-Haya, Musab al-Marzouk, and other people within that small group that would then designate a specific individual that would take over. But in any event, the center of gravity will not stay on the Gaza Strip. It will most likely either shift to Ankara, Doha, or Tehran, and which will have its own implications.
We remember the Troika, the collective leadership of Bulganin, Malenkov, and Khrushchev. After Stalin, it took some time for Khrushchev, 2.5 years, to emerge as the leader. If this is the timetable we're talking about, the war is going to be very long.
With that being said, it took nearly 5 days to transition from Ismail Haniyeh to Yahya Sinwar, so don't be so pessimistic about their necessity to designate the leader. But Professor Rosenthal, whatever happens in the Middle East, the chief culprit remains the Islamic Republic of Iran, which is right now scrambling around with the various individuals within the Ayatollah regime seeking to dissuade Israel from targeting its nuclear infrastructure as well as its energy infrastructure. The latest ploy by specifically Tehran's foreign ministry is to send a formal notice with the International Atomic Energy Agency voicing its frustration and anger over Israel's insinuation of targeting its nuclear program. Do you see this in any way affecting the tone in which the international community confers with Israel about its legitimacy to retaliate for the blatant strike of 181 ballistic missiles by Iran against Israel on October 1st earlier this month?
Okay, well, let me first and foremost say that it's quite intriguing that right at this moment today, Iran is present at the BRICS conference in Kazan, Russia. So it shows how the situation actually is with Iran and Russia being very tight, in a tight connection. Iran delivering again a lot of arms to Russia, etc. That's one. Secondly, it's of great importance that we do know by now very emphatically about the complicity of Iran in the terrible massacre of October 7th last year. Third point I would like to raise is I say that I'm interested actually also in the comment by Mark Himmitt that I read a comprehensive analysis of the Biden strategy towards Iran, and the conclusion was there is no strategy at all, actually, apart from trying their utmost to get a nuclear deal done, while that is a dead end. Furthermore, let me say that within Iran, as far as I get the messages from there and also from the diaspora community, in Iran itself, unrest is continuing, inflation is terrible, succession struggle is by now getting increasingly intense, and in Iran itself, I hear that people are looking, of course, very eagerly to what will be the response of Israel to the several assaults by Iran to Israel. And there are 2 points which are raised continuously. First, nuclear facilities, and secondly, decapitation. And I would say that the Iranian Ayatollahs, we get several messages about the huge nervosity in Tehran about what is going on. Also, when it is about the eternal life which the Khamenei might wish to have.
Indeed. Well, of course, Abbas Araghchi, the foreign minister of the Islamic Republic of Iran, is today in Kuwait as part of a broad regional tour to meet the various counterparts around the region, as well as some of those leaders, in order to discourage them from allowing Israel to utilize their airspace to conduct any activities against the Islamic Republic. Which
so now you're seeing that. Now you're seeing that Esau, the split of Esau, the negative side of Esau, trying to accrete some support with Ishmael. All right, and we'll see how this plays out. But I think Israel would have hit earlier if it wasn't for the leak. Now I think they have to redo the plans to hit Iran. Plus, according to Jim Jordan, and I think it was Rubio that stated that if the Republicans win the Senate, the importance of the Republicans winning the Senate and keeping the House, because they would be able to really go after the investigation of this potential treasonous activity with leaking the information. But before we continue with what they're saying in Israel, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the probiotics. I have it in powder form. I also have a probiotic that's in a veggie cap form. I usually take the powdered form. I mix it with my hummus. You just saw me eat the hummus. So you mix it with, you know, a smoothie or hummus or with your food or filtered water and take it every day. Or you can just take the veggie cap. But they're very high. Both, either one are very high quality. So please go to the store and get the probiotic. Why do you want to take a probiotic? It's going to help with your gut health. It'll help with your metabolism. You're going to be able to absorb nutrients better. It'll reduce inflammation of the gut. And by reducing the inflammation of the gut, you're going to reduce the chances of getting infections through the gut lining, reduce leaky gut syndrome. And if you have chronic inflammation of the gut, DNA damage can take place in the gut lining. So you want to mitigate that. So please go to my store, get these probiotics, take it every day to improve your gut health. And by improving your gut health, you're going to have better metabolism, better communication between your gut and your liver, which is really important. You're going to have better skin, because poor gut health can manifest with poor skin health. In addition, you'll have better mental acuity, mental clarity, and emotional stability, because people that have a problem with gut, they have memory problems, they have mental acuity problems, and mood issues. So please go to my store and get the probiotics. I also have many products that are dual purpose, but a great dual purpose product that you should get is olive leaf extract. This helps with the immune system and the cardiovascular system. Olive leaf extract, what it basically does is brings down inflammation to help with the immune system. And it also brings down LDL levels and increases your HDL levels to help with your cardiovascular system. When you bring down inflammation, it also helps with cardiovascular health. Why? Because I mentioned earlier, by reducing inflammation, you're reducing the chances of building up new plaque. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the olive leaf extract. Now, if you remember what I told you about K2 and stacking it to help with cardiovascular health, you can add into that stack also olive leaf extract.
We'll wait and see what it has to say. General Kimmich, your take on that?
Well, I think the one comment that I'd like to make is focusing on the BRICS meeting, because it is important to note that not only Iran is joining the BRICS, but so is Egypt and the United Arab Emirates as well. It is a telling sign to the credibility of the United States that the UAE, little Sparta, one of our closest allies, is so concerned about the United States' ability to remain a reliable ally that they're now putting their feet in both camps.
That is very interesting. I do think it's even more interesting to know that Russian President Vladimir Putin has also highlighted that Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas was also invited to the BRICS. So who knows what may emerge out of that. But nonetheless, General Kimmich, I'd like to follow up on that. To what degree does that also provide some indication to the efforts of the so-called Axis that emerged by China, Russia, the Islamic Republic of Iran, North Korea, and others to highlight that their economic aspirations that, of course, emerged following the massive sanctions imposed on many of those regimes for their malign behavior, may be a better alternative in an age where the United States does have its rules-based order demands, at least the application of the various demands, in order to be a good standing figure.
Well, again, I think it really comes down to this view that we're moving from a unipolar world to a multipolar world, but it really does seem as if China and Russia in particular are trying to come up with a bipolar world again, one that's and it's not an issue of strength or power. It's just simply lining up who's going to be on our side versus who's going to be against the American-led West. I'm not really certain people have really figured this out. I certainly haven't. Whether they certainly are not ideological relationships, but they seem to be more than simply transactional relationships. Much of it may have to do with just a view that the United States, again, is not a reliable partner, and the United States is also a country in decline. So it could well be that in this new bipolar world that could be emerging, that people are just either picking winners, what they think is going to be who they think is going to be the winner, or hedging their bets by trying to keep a foot in both camps.
Indeed. Well, the UAE has never shied away from admitting that it is hedging its bets in a very tumultuous environment at this point in time. And the fact that India and China are also in BRICS together does reinforce your statements about the fact that it is not about liking each other, but rather a transactional environment.
Well, it's buying protection.
Right.
Especially if you are a weak, at least militarily weak country, even though you may be financially strong. But we can go back to the non-aligned movement, Gamal Abdel Nasser and others coming to the world stage via this third option, as if there is not the first world, the second world, they are the third world. Of course, things have changed. But also, if you look at the Egyptian president, Assisi, he doesn't want an American administration hectoring him on human rights. He thinks that in Washington, they don't understand the reality in the Middle East. If you treat your enemies too lightly, too politely, they are going to kill you. And he can get more sympathy from China and Russia.
Well, I think he also gets a lot of sympathy from other Western countries, and it seems like the winds are shifting right now.
But he also wants to get the $2 billion a year in military aid, right, in addition to sympathy.
It's taken care of.
He and sympathy.
In one sentence, from each of you, what are we to expect in the next 24 hours? Please keep it briefly. Professor Rosenthal, we'll start with you.
Well, I would not want to say something about next 24 hours, but about the next 2 weeks. And everybody is simply waiting for the elections in the United States, with only a couple of countries in Europe actually favoring a possible victory of Donald Trump, Italy, Hungary, and some of the Baltic states. And that shows it all, how the situation also in Europe is vis-a-vis the United States.
General Kimmett?
I don't expect to see anything happen in the next 24 hours. I don't expect to see any breakthroughs on the ground in the next week. I would remind your listeners that, in fact, President Biden is president until January, not until November 5th. But it's certainly the case that people are going to think very carefully about any actions they take in this interregnum.
Sukkot is not done yet, all right? It's going to end this week. My understanding was there was going to be a major ground invasion of Lebanon just after Sukkot. So we'll see, all right? That's the 24th, I think is when it ends. 23rd or 24th, so it's coming up. Now, my understanding was that there was a major ground movement, invasion, a major ground offensive just after Sukkot. So we'll see. Now, I wouldn't be surprised that the strike on Iran is before the election. Not at all. Not at all. I would not be surprised.
Between President Biden and the next president.
Indeed. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. I'd like to thank General Kimmett, Professor Rosenthal, and Mr. Owen for all of your insights. I'd like to thank all of you at home as well. Until our next edition from here in Jerusalem, Have a good day.
Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to either go to Al Jazeera or go to Bloomberg because they're talking about the election. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the turmeric. Turmeric is an antioxidant, but it also brings down inflammation. That's really important for your immune system and for your cardiovascular system. Ashwagandha root is synergistic with turmeric. It helps by bringing down the cortisol levels and your glucose levels and brings down inflammation. In addition, when you stack this with turmeric and bring down that inflammatory response and control those blood glucose levels, what you're doing is that you're helping your immune system, but you're also helping with your cardiovascular system by bringing down that inflammation and reducing the chances of building up new plaque. But if you stack this with the C60, the nattokinase, the omega-3, the olive leaf extract, the K2, the D3, when you do that, then you are reducing plaque, not just the chance of building new plaque. And it takes, about 6 months to 1 year to start seeing a big difference. But it does work. It does work. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get the ashwagandha root and the turmeric, boost up your immune system and bring down inflammation. Control those blood glucose levels and control those cortisol levels. A lot of people are just too stressed out. They don't sleep enough and they have high cortisol levels and it brings down your immune system. And it causes more stress cardiovascularly. Vitamin C, really important to boost up your immune system. We're in the cold season. If you're not feeling well, take a double dose. Make sure you drink it with filtered water. And lastly, resveratrol. This is an antioxidant. In addition, it helps with getting rid of senesced cells. Senesced cells are basically cells that stop dividing but just sit there and they just collect garbage. All right, you want to get rid of those, right? And by getting rid of those in certain types of tissues that you have adult stem cells, you can repopulate that tissue and the tissue will be healthier. So I've been taking resveratrol for, 30 years, something like that. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get resveratrol, stack it with C60. It works very well with other antioxidants. It also stacks well with NAD+ and ubiquinol. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get resveratrol. Also boost up your mitochondrial health. That's really important. All right, Bloomberg is in commercial right now. So what we're going to do is we'll go to Al Jazeera.
Of Israeli airstrikes. Now, the Israeli military is saying that they are targeting Hezbollah assets and infrastructure, but what we see here on the ground is residential buildings completely destroyed. As you can see, also, there is no paramedics or emergency personnel because, as I said, these buildings were empty. So it is just rubble that is left behind. What the narrative here is that Israel is trying to create an environment where they are trying to turn the supporters of Hezbollah against them. And that is what they also stated is one of their aims in going after the social and healthcare facilities that are even affiliated with the organization.
Now, officials in Lebanon say more than 1 million people have been displaced since the start of the conflict with Israel. It's putting heavy strain on resources across the country, including even the smallest communities. Asif Baig reports from eastern Lebanon, where Christians have opened their doors to displaced Muslims.
Under the shade of a monastery, these Shia Muslims have found sanctuary with their Christian
We're going to
neighbors.
go to BBC.
Hundreds
Lebanon
of internally
says-
displaced people now reside here in Lebanon.
Lebanon says 13 killed in Israeli strike near southern Beirut hospital. This was published 5 hours ago. Come on.
Weeks. In southern Beirut, there was a strike next to the biggest government hospital in the country, in which 4 people were killed, including a child. The Lebanese Health Ministry says 24 people were also wounded. Let's show you live pictures of the Lebanese capital, Beirut. Columns of smoke have been filling the sky over previous hours. The IDF says it intends to strike the finances of Hezbollah. Hezbollah continues to fire rockets into northern Israel. The Israeli military also says it's identified a bunker concealed under another Beirut hospital that it says holds hundreds of millions of dollars worth of cash and gold. Their spokesman, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, said the money was being used to finance Hezbollah's attacks on Israel and provided these reconstructions, saying the bunker is located directly under the hospital in the heart of Beirut. No further evidence was provided, and the hospital's administration has denied the claims. Israel said it was monitoring the compound but wouldn't strike the hospital itself. Here are some pictures from Israeli strikes overnight. This is Babda, a suburb of Beirut. Israel says it's hitting targets that are linked to Hezbollah. Our correspondent in Beirut, Jonathan Head, told me the strikes caused panic.
There's been a second night of multiple strikes here in Beirut. A bit confusing for people living here. There were warnings to 7 neighborhoods. One of them, a small former fishing village, a little coastal community right next to the international airport, has not been targeted before, and nobody knows what the target there would be. So there's a lot of panic, people trying to get out. It's quite a poor neighborhood. This airstrikes came in pretty quickly afterwards, 4 of them. And then that strike close to the biggest public hospital, Reykjavik University Hospital. It seems to have been targeting a building next to it. There's also a lot of people near the hospital, as you can imagine. There are also displaced people there, so quite high casualty counts, 4 people killed, one of them a child. We've been told by the Israelis that they're now going after Hezbollah's financial infrastructure. We saw the night before attacks on branches of Hezbollah's de facto bank. We don't know whether last night's strikes were a continuation of that or a move to a different direction. As you said, there is that rather dramatic announcement that there's a secret bunker after another really big public hospital, Al Sahel. And we'll have to wait till our colleagues and other journalists come back from the tour of that hospital this morning to see whether they saw any evidence of that, or I think at the end we're just going to end up with the hospital denying it and the Israelis insisting it's there. Everyone here is very nervous. At this stage, it's very hard to calculate what the next Israeli targets will be, given how they've now widened their campaign to try to dismantle Hezbollah's networks. It's really its presence in society. Once you go beyond military into attacking the financial infrastructure, this is how Hezbollah has such influence. It's almost a shadow government here in Lebanon. It provides a lot of welfare to people, and of course Israel alleges all that money, which it says comes from Iran, also funds Hezbollah's military activities and attacks on northern Israel.
And how sustained, Jonathan, have Hezbollah's attacks been on Israel coming the other way?
Well, they're sustained in the sense that they're pretty much the same level almost every day. Israel does appear to be able to intercept most of them. I know there have been explosions in many parts of Israel this morning, so we haven't counted the number of rockets going across. Hezbollah has said it's targeted an Israeli naval base. Until now, in most cases, the Hezbollah attacks have not caused huge amounts of damage and relatively light casualties. But the fact that they're still firing rockets reminds the Israelis that their goal of completely destroying Hezbollah's military capabilities has not been achieved, which of course means that the Israeli campaign, which includes this rather slow ground operation down near the border, that operation will continue.
Well, just in the last few minutes, we've heard from the Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant that bank, Al-Qad al-Hassan Bank, has been added to a list of groups designated by Israel as terrorist organizations. So that is the branch, that's the name of the bank. Many branches have been targeted. There are several in southern Beirut, according to Israel, and they claim that Hezbollah is financed through that bank. The designation is part of a wider campaign by Israel to target the economic resources of Hezbollah. But just in the last few minutes, Yoav Gallant, the defense minister, adding that bank to a list of groups designated by Israel as terrorist organizations. Now, the UN aid agency operating in Gaza says the Israeli authorities are still preventing medicine and food from reaching people under siege in the north. Footage shot in the aftermath of an attack by Israel on a refugee camp in Jabalia shows a nurse running in panic between the dead and wounded at a UN school. Israel says its offensive is aimed at stopping Hamas from regrouping in northern Gaza. Our international editor, Jeremy Bowen, has seen the video, a warning his report shows extremely graphic images.
Palestinian first responders went to collect bodies in a lull in Israel's offensive in Jabalia and the rest of northern Gaza. The UN says Gaza's nightmare is intensifying, a worsening humanitarian crisis amid what it calls relentless Israeli strikes. This was filmed this morning by a nurse called Nabila in the moments after an Israeli strike on a UN school in Jabalia used as a shelter by civilians. Close to panic, she tries to tell this woman to be calm, saying, "I have nothing to stop the bleeding." She turns back to help the other casualties. She is the only medic there. Children are dead. A woman's leg has been blown off. And then she runs to get her medical bag. The child says, "Please help. My sister is dying." Nabila hasn't got much. A few basic wound dressings. "Use this," she says. One of the women says, "My children are gone. Look at them." Back down the stairs, past dead children, and then she screams when she sees the dead body of an elderly man she recognizes. Northern Gaza this morning, just after an airstrike, from a vantage point a few miles away in Israel. It's a public holiday here. This is a popular place to observe the war. Israelis believe the killing and hostage taking.
This is a perfect example of what I was saying about don't kick the can down the road. War is horrific, all right? Not only for the soldiers, but also for the citizens. Where they're caught in between these military factions and, you know, they're collateral damage, all right? If the job was done in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and the early 2020s, this would not have happened. But because we have an international community that's not willing to go all the way and solve the problem and stop these terrorist groups, it starts with the PLO and all the financing through the PLO. And the PLO was having problems even in Jordan. Jordan kicked them out. And so the PLO, the same problems that you're seeing in Israel, the Jordanians were having, all right? So the Arafat movement and all these garbs that people wear, the scarf, the Palestinian scarf, that's Arafat. That's from Arafat, all right? And so his whole, the whole genesis of this, it's not solving the problem of destroying the terrorism that sprouted off of the PLO. Now you have Hamas and you have Hezbollah, the funding from Iran, the infighting with Shia and Sunni, or what I call negative Esau and Ishmael. All right. So because the international community for more than 50 years has not been willing to get the job done and root out the terrorism and destroy the erratic part of Iran. And now the nuclear capability. And if we keep on doing this problem, we keep on kicking the can down the road, Iran's going to have a nuclear weapon, and it's going to change the dynamics of the situation greatly, and it may cause further collateral damage, death, destruction, and loss of economic viability for not just that region, but for other regions of the world. So this wouldn't have happened if the job was done in 2006. This wouldn't have happened if the job was done in the 80s. See? This is a data point that shows that my international affairs, doctrine, if you want to call it that, is right. Get the job done. If you don't get it done, it's only going to get worse. It's a shame that civilians have to die during this situation, but more people are going to die if the job isn't done, and the can is just kicked down the road for another 10 years, maybe 5 years. But unconventional warfare is starting to emerge. And that's radiologic, biologic, chemical, and other modalities. Like cyber and energy grid issues and stuff. So I mean, people need to wake up and just get the job done.
Mass, and the way Palestinians voted for them makes the war in Gaza and the others that followed necessary and just.
If they would return the hostages, then I would have what to feel for. In the meantime, there's nothing I can feel for them. They started this, they entered Israel, they attacked us, and all this is the results of their initial actions.
A short drive away, close to the Gaza border, it was a family day out for Israelis who believe the war has given them the chance to recreate a very different Gaza. They want to restore Jewish settlements inside the Gaza Strip that the Israeli government removed in 2005. These people know what they want when eventually there's a ceasefire in Gaza. The Israeli government has only really said what it doesn't want. It doesn't want any kind of government that looks like progress towards Palestinian state. Now, that is a problem for its Western allies, the Americans, the British, and others, because they believe a Palestinian state alongside Israel is the only way to stabilize the region and not have perpetual war.
What if the international community is wrong and that you have to have total war and solve the problem? Because maybe the reason why the problem is what it is because they never have been able to reach homeostasis with total war. Germany was defeated with total war. Japan was defeated with total war. Total war has not happened in that region. So maybe the international community is just wrong.
The blue hat brought her family up on a farming settlement in the Gaza Strip. For her, leaving was a gross injustice. I played her a report I did about her departure 19 years ago.
This is an integral part of the state of Israel.
Since that day in 2005, they've dreamt about a return, and now they see Palestinians forced out of large areas of Gaza and are pushing to replace them.
I think we have an opportunity to build much more than we had before. I think we should build cities in some of the places. We should bring many, many more of Israel's population into the Gaza Strip. I think those people on the Gaza Strip, and there are a lot, that want to leave. Why is Egypt and Israel not allowing them to leave and go to Europe?
The bomb shelters where Israelis fled from
the reason being is no one wants the Palestinians because of this residualness of the PLO. They know that they would have problems.
Have been made into memorials to the dead and to the hostages. This is where many were cornered and killed. Inside, memorial candles where they died. Outside, they've posted their biographies. The war is changing the Middle East in ways no one fully understands yet, and it's widening and escalating. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News in southern Israel.
Yeah, I've been saying this. I've been saying this since I've been covering it almost, a little bit over a year ago now, right? Because it's October 22nd, 2024, and I started covering it shortly after October 7th of 2023. So I've been covering it for a year. A year goes by quick. But the point here is this. It's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. And the more the international community tries to slow this thing down, it's only going to get worse in the future. So let it go all out war. Whoever wins, wins. Whoever wins, wins. The same thing. How do you think the United States formed? How do you think certain states in Europe formed? It was through war.
Humanitarian crisis in northern Gaza grows. The US Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has just arrived in Israel. He's released 5 priorities to try to end the war. Firstly, talking to Israel and others about how to end the war in Gaza, including bringing home all the Israeli hostages. He'll also discuss a post-conflict day after plan with Israel. He wants to review humanitarian assistance to Gaza, and this is after the US gave Israel 30 days to take steps or risk some military assistance being cut off by the US. Mr. Blinken wants to try to discuss ways to get a resolution to the war with Hezbollah. He'll also discuss Israel's expected retaliation against Iran. His visit to the Middle East comes after the White House says it's deeply concerned about the leak of a pair of highly classified intelligence documents describing Israel's preparations for a retaliatory strike on Iran. The documents appeared on Telegram at the weekend, including satellite images and classified analysis. Our correspondent Jonah Fisher is in Jerusalem. He told me more about Blinken's visit and what to expect.
We're expecting Anthony Blinken to arrive here in Israel in the next hour or so, and hopes, to be quite frank, are not high that he will be able to move things forward in terms of achieving peace in either Gaza or in southern Lebanon. This trip was conceived last week in the immediate aftermath of the killing of Yahya Sinwar, the Hamas leader in Gaza. I think there was a hope at that point in the United States and in Western capitals that it might provide some sort of opening for negotiations to restart, perhaps to move to peace, some sort of ceasefire exchange with hostages, perhaps. In the days since then, well, that has really receded as a possibility, not least because people have realized that with Hamas's leadership having been effectively killed, it's very hard to strike any sort of deal there, but also the sense that Israel still feels that it's got military objectives that it wants to achieve, both in Gaza and in Lebanon. We saw new strikes overnight on Beirut. So it is going to be extremely difficult for Anthony Blinken. He will be here in Israel first, then he will move to other countries around the Middle East. Perhaps the most realistic thing he could hope for here is to try and get some progress in terms of getting humanitarian aid into Gaza, where the situation is pretty dire in some areas, particularly in the north, and the UN has talked about pretty atrocious conditions there.
Jonah Fisher.
All right, that was the BBC. Al Jazeera looks like they're doing some sort of documentary, kind of mini documentary right now on maybe Africa, maybe South America. But before we go to another video, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the structural nanosilver gel. Why? Because this structural nanosilver gel is a dual purpose. It can help heal wounds, abrasions, cuts, minor burns. It'll heal it quicker. Why? Because it keeps it clean. In addition, you can use it as a daily skincare routine where you put it on your skin right before you go to bed. Put it on your face and then exfoliate in the morning, and then you'll notice that your skin's clearer and your skin's tighter. All right. This also can be used to neutralize pathogens and protect a barrier on your skin. So you put it on your skin, on your hands, around your mouth, around your nose, around your eyes, around your ears, right? Lightly coat your nostrils to maintain that mucosal barrier. They'll neutralize pathogens and reduce the chances of potentially getting sick during the cold season, right? please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nanosilver gel. This gel stays active for 5 hours when you're using it prophylactically, during the cold season or whatnot. But it's a very high quality product, and what you can do with structural nanosilver gel, you cannot do with Perel. This is better than Perel. Trust me. Why? Because Perel is alcohol based. It'll crack your skin. It'll do damage to your skin. Perel sanitizes within seconds, but it doesn't. It just evaporates. What happens here is that it stays active for five plus hours on your skin, neutralizing and keeping you sanitized. So trust me, during the cold season, you want to have a couple tubes of that for your household, especially when you're going to work or you're going to school, or you're at home and people are sick. You want to be using that every day. Please go to my store and get the structural nanosilver toothpaste. This will neutralize pathogens, or whiten your teeth, freshen your breath, maintain your gum line. When we get older, our gum line starts to recede. You can repair that gum line with proper oral health, right? So structural nanosilver toothpaste will help improve your gum line. In addition, with good oral hygiene, you're reducing your chances of cardiovascular disease and valvular disease. That's really important. As we get older, people do develop cardiovascular problems because of poor oral hygiene. So what happens is that if you do not have good oral hygiene, what will happen is that the plaques and the bacteria can get into your bloodstream, right? Because of the receding of the gum line and your gums bleed and all this microscopically gets into your bloodstream. It causes an inflammatory response, causes further plaque development. You might even get an embolism, a small embolism, or what could happen is that bacteria or that inflammatory response could cause some damage onto your valve and get vegetation on that valve or calcium deposits, and you start having valvular disease. So your heart, there's many types of valvular disease. One is stenosis because of this accumulation of calcium. Another is a weakening of the valve where it's prolapsing. So, and so you have regurgitation and whatnot. But the point here is that with poor oral hygiene, you are increasing the chances of cardiovascular disease and valvular disease. You want to mitigate that. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nanosilver toothpaste that I have. This has no fluoride in it because fluoride makes you stupid. So get the fluoride out of your diet, out of your water. Make sure you filter your water, but also use my structural nanosilver toothpaste every day. Get a few tubes of this for your household. This is really important. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Lignans, really important to take to boost up your immune system. It also helps with hormonal health for males and females. How this works is there's a scooper in here. It's a powder. Mix it with your food or with water or smoothie. Drink it with filtered water and take it every day. What you're going to notice is that you're going to be soaking up free radicals and you're bringing down inflammation and improving your immune system. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take lignans every day. It's really important to boost up your immune system post-2020 crisis. Ubiquinol. This is a very high quality product, all right? Very high quality. It is the best CoQ10 that you can buy, all right? If you notice that a lot of the stuff that I have is very high quality, all right? Because I really put the effort into it. This is the best CoQ10 that you can buy, all right? This Ubiquinol. It has the best bioavailability on the market, and in addition, this it acts as an antioxidant, so it's going to soak up free radicals. It helps to boost up energy levels, and it's also neuroprotective. All right, it helps with your neurons. This is really important to take when you get older because you need more energy. You need to protect your neurons. You need to, take supplements that'll increase the viability and increase the health of the neurons. Because if you have neurodegeneration, you're going to have movement problems, you're going to have gait problems, you're going to have memory issues, right? Your cognitive ability goes down. But if you take supplements to help maintain that, then you're going to age slower neurologically. So ubiquinol is really important for that. In addition, ubiquinol is really important for other cells in your body to have higher energy levels and to soak up free radicals. So please go to my store, get the ubiquinol. It also helps with improving the mitochondrial health. That's really important when you get older, all right? This ubiquinol is very, very high quality, and it is the best bioavailability that you're going to get, all right? So please go to my store and take this ubiquinol every day. I've been taking ubiquinol for a long time, all right? A long time. I've been taking CoQ10 for a long time. But what I have on my store is the best bioavailable CoQ10 that you can get, all right? So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take ubiquinol. Again, ubiquinol is the active form of CoQ10. And nattokinase, important for your cardiovascular system. It helps to break up clots. It brings down LDL levels, increases your HDL levels, so you're improving your cholesterol. And it is synergistic with, other supplements that I have, like omega-3, which also helps to improve your lipid profile. It is synergistic with turmeric and bromelain, which is in my digestive enzyme complex. So you can take nattokinase and turmeric together, and also the digestive enzyme. The digestive enzyme complex has bromelain in it, and it's going to help break up clots. Nattokinase helps to break up clots. So it's two vectors breaking up clots. In addition, nattokinase brings down LDL levels. Same thing with omega-3. So you're attacking and bringing down your LDL levels and improving your cholesterol. You don't want to get on the statins. Statins are bad for you, all right? But taking supplementation that's natural, that's going to help with your cholesterol levels, is way better than getting on a statin. So go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the nattokinase and get also the omega-3. All right, what's going on Bloomberg with politics?
To hold a big virtual rally, if you will, for Kamala Harris. It's on Zoom on Thursday to emphasize, quote, the importance of cannabis reform in America, unquote. Last month, Willie Nelson also got together with Doug Emhoff and Beto O'Rourke to hold an event. Is this a way to get to young people?
So when Willie Nelson gets together with Beto O'Rourke and these guys, are they smoking dope in those meetings? I mean, like, I want to know what is going on.
I'm not sure there's a lot of mystery there, Rick. I'm assuming that's yes.
All right. I may want to be a Democrat someday in my life, I guess. Yeah, I always thought they had more fun than Republicans did. The bottom line is, I think these, issues that they are grasping on, that they can find little pockets of support that are not generally partisan. In other words, if you're attracted to that issue of legalizing marijuana or decriminalizing marijuana or banking marijuana, then you're probably not easily fit into the Republican or Democratic Party. Then, you probably aren't an active person, paying attention to politics in general. And that's what we're down to in this election is small issues for small constituencies. We are not talking the big moving parts. They're done and they're voting right now. Millions of people have already voted who are in the previous category. Now what we're down to is those people who are not paying that much attention and need to be motivated one way or another. And I guess a little toke on the old Mary Jane will motivate some people.
Okay, Jeannie. So potheads for Pennsylvania, you're on a college campus almost every day. Does this motivate young voters?
No, I do not think so. Sure, you may have larger support for this. They've grown up with
It's stupid. All right. So now let's go to CNN and see what they have to say about how close the election is.
Final fortnight, and by that I mean 2 weeks exactly to the day.
Great language.
Left. Fortnight means 2 weeks. What, medieval?
Sure, why not? I'm a medieval guy.
It's a good time to check in on where the race is. CNN senior GETTR reporter Harriet is ready to get medieval with us.
You're gonna get knighted.
Yes. How close is this race?
Okay, so when we talk about a historically close race, oftentimes we talk about the national polling, but I wanted to try and dig into the state numbers to get an understanding of how close this race is. Holy cow, from a historical perspective. So what I did for all of the years going back since 1972 was I took a look at the final polls, and then I basically calculated out what the electoral map would look like and how high up would the leading candidate's electoral vote total get. And what we essentially see is right now the leader's electoral vote total is 276 electoral votes based upon the polls. If you go back since 72 and try and find the closest years, if you go back to 2000, which of course was a historically close election, at the end of the campaign, the poll leader's electoral vote total was just 281 electoral votes. That's where Gore was in the final polls of that campaign. You go back to 2004, George W. Bush was at 296 electoral votes. So based upon the polls at this point, we are heading into the election with the closest polls in the Electoral College that we have ever seen, at least over the last 50 years. It's stuff like
This
this
really
that gets...
scares me. Okay, now I'm going to get a little esoteric here. All right. The part that's not esoteric is this: as the polls become closer and closer to election day, you know, throughout time, throughout the decades, all right, it's increasing the chances of the ability of one party doing nefarious things to fraudulently win an election. All right. Now, the esoteric part of this is that, you know, these are systems, these are social systems, all right? And you can understand systems, physical systems and social systems, if there are feedback loops, if there are, you know, forward and reverse loops, all right? And signals. And there is an emergent behavior that starts to take place. This is part of complexity. This is what is called complexity science, all right? But there are emergent behaviors that can happen, that can lead to chaotic things or unexpected phenomena, even if the individual parts are very simple. So they're called agents, but these individual agents may have very simple rules, but they interact and have feedback loops, and an emergent property can happen. You can look at this from a subatomic particle level. You can think of it as just people interacting in commerce. You can look at this, you know, in maybe trading behavior between buyers and sellers and how a phenomena can change. Politics, anything that has some sort of simple rules, but there are feedback loops. Emergent properties can happen out of this. All right. So what does this mean? All right. Sometimes you can see in these systems where things are happening, right, and they're undulating, right, and then all of a sudden you'll start to notice that it's undulating faster and faster and faster, and there's like a pinch point. All right. And I think what we're seeing here is that each year that goes by, the closeness, the difference, all right, so x-axis is time, y-axis is difference between a Republican or Democrat candidate in the polls. So wherever they're polling, you know, whatever their percentage is, let's say they were 10 points ahead in time zero, so it'd be 10. But let's say the next time period, it's 5, so it's going down. 5-point difference between the two candidates. And let's say in time 3, it's 2 points down. And then time 4, it jumps up to 10 again, right? And there's this undulation that's taking place. But if you're starting to notice that the difference is starting to get closer and closer to zero, maybe 1 point higher, half a point higher, 2 points higher, not 10 points, not, so what's happening is it's getting close to zero. And there is sometimes these systems that converge to a point or converge to some sort of limit, like zero difference in this case, when you're converging to some sort of zero limit, there's like a phase transition. Now, what does this mean? What does this mean in politics? There's an energy that's building up between these very close elections, right, in the polls, and something changes rapidly. The politics change, the direction of the country changes. There's a phase transition that changes. So we're seeing a phase transition that's taking place here. All right, it's getting closer and closer and closer. There's, you can call it the Democratic Party or Republican or ultra liberalism and conservatism or whatever. But there's a pinch point that's taking place, and there's a phase transition. Now, in trading, what you'll see is a price might be moving. So you have time in X, and you have price. So the price is undulating, right? And then all of a sudden, the change between the undulations starts to get less and less and less. So it's like a harmonic dissipation at a pinch point. And then all of a sudden, bam, there's a jump diffusion, either positively or negatively. So there's this pinch. It's some people call it wedge, some sort of wedge analysis. But the point here is that there's a phase transition because there's an energy that's building up in the system. We're seeing an energy building up in the system in polls. So there's going to be a phase transition in our politics. Now, what is it? What is that? That's an esoteric way of saying that the country's moving in a different direction. Now, we don't know for sure if it's going to be a conservative direction or an ultra liberal direction, but this is a set of data points that is suggesting, with other telemetry, but other things that one could look at in society to see that there is this pinch point that's taking place, or there is this building up of energy for a phase transition. So that's an esoteric way of saying what this guy's just saying. But if you've been watching me for a while, you'll notice that I'm constantly referring to data and chaos. There's or a buildup of energy or buildup of pressure in the system. The same thing if you take it with what's going on in the Middle East. You had, over the years, they thought that they could, through diplomatic policy and the UN intervening, that you'd be able to prevent war in that region. All right. And so there's this undulation, but it gets faster and faster. It costs more. There's more collateral damage. Right. And as this is happening, there's more energy building up into the system. And then all of a sudden it reaches a certain pinch point, and then there's a phase transition in that region. Now, what I think is going to happen is it's going to be the death of negative Esau, and the alignment of positive Esau with Jacob, and the alignment of Ishmael with Jacob. That basically means that Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran are going to be completely destroyed. The Ayatollah and the theocratic regime of Iran. So that we're seeing a pinch point that's taking place even in the Middle East, where there's going to be some sort of phase transition. The other possibility is Israel is destroyed, but I don't think that's going to happen. But I could be wrong. But there's definitely a phase transition that's going on in the Middle East. So if anyone thinks that that you disagree with me, that there's not going to be a phase transition, not knowing which way it goes, but by saying there's not a phase transition going on in the Middle East, I don't think you're paying attention to the news. We're not really sure which direction it will go. I suspect that there's a higher probability that Israel will win and not the negative Esau. But we don't know for sure. But there's definitely a pressure that's building up in that region that will lead to a phase transition. All right. Before we continue with CNN, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. If you're having a problem sleeping at night because you're listening to my channel, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the good night formula. If you're tired or you're worried about a nuclear war in the Middle East or even in China, or you're worried that the Democrats are going to win the election and you can't sleep, go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the good night formula. If you're worried about the market crashing because you listen to Lisa Haven, or you're worried about, the destruction of the Constitution, on next Tuesday because you're watching Alex Jones and you can't sleep, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the good night formula. Why? Because it has melatonin and tryptophan in it. This will, if you take this, you're going to get 3 cycles of REM sleep, roughly. You're going to get deep sleep. You're going to be well rested in the morning. You're going to have consolidation of memory, and you're going to be detoxifying your central nervous system. That's really important because chronic sleep deprivation means you don't consolidate memory. You're not going to have energy, and you're going to build up toxins. When you have sleep deprivation chronically, you are increasing the chances of early onset of dementia. On top of, you have higher cortisol levels and your immune system is down. So you get sicker and you age faster. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the good night formula. I have just told you that if you listen to Lisa Havens, you're going to age faster. Why? Because your cortisol levels are up and you can't sleep. I just told you that if you listen to Alex Jones, you're going to age faster. Why? Because he's telling you the end of the world is around the corner. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Listen to my channel. I'll tell you what's going on and how to mitigate the problem. Go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the good night formula. Take this every day. Get a good night's sleep. Get 3 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. Consolidate memory so you have more mental acuity, and you're reducing the chances of early onset of dementia because of sleep deprivation. And stop listening to Alex Jones. Please go to my store and get omega-3. I've told you many times on how to mitigate cardiovascular disease. Omega-3 will lower your LDL levels and increase your HDL levels, and omega-3 will help prevent red blood cells from sticking. This is synergistic with nattokinase. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Listen to how to stack these things and improve your health. It's a very high quality product. I've partnered up with Rainbow Herbals, and we have developed these great deodorant bars that are dual purpose. You can get it in peppermint, lavender, and tea tree, or in citrus. These are made from essential oils from the Himalayas. It doesn't have any aluminum in it, and it doesn't have any baking soda in it. They're made from natural ingredients, very high quality. You use it as a deodorant every day. It's for males and females, and it can slowly detoxify your body. Get a couple bars for your household, use it every day, detoxify your body, and smell nice. All right? By detoxifying your body, you're mitigating the problems that toxins cause with your endocrine system and your immune system. Please go to my store and get the Max 35 or the Max 14. You take a teaspoon of this a day, swish it in your mouth, gargle with it, and then swallow. Gargle maybe 20 seconds or 30 seconds and then swallow. If you're not feeling well during the cold season, take a tablespoon or 2 a day. Very simple. I take a teaspoon of this every day for 4 years, more than 4 years. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take the structural nano silver liquid. All right, now let's go back to CNN.
Up in the morning, it gets me truly excited as a political sort of science.
This is a really interesting way to look at it. I never would have thought of this, but basically what the polls are showing right now, the poll,
correct,
the closest race in terms of the electoral vote that we've ever seen.
Exactly
That's
right.
fascinating. All right, how about in the key states?
Yeah, how about in the key states? You know, it's not just when you tally up the electoral votes. Harris likely must carry 3 of these 4 states to win, and these are the states most likely to determine the electoral college. Look at this. North Carolina, less than a point lead for Trump. Wisconsin, less than a point lead for Harris. Michigan, the exact same thing. Pennsylvania, the exact same thing. Basically, the 4 states that are most likely to determine this outcome are all within a point. And when we span this out to the electoral college, what do we get? We get exactly this. Harris with that 276 electoral votes because she carries these Great Lake battleground states, right? But let's just say we flip Pennsylvania and the polls don't match the result exactly right. What happens? We flip Pennsylvania to red, and then we get Trump to 281 electoral votes, which is not really much of a long shot, given that at this particular point, the race in Pennsylvania is within a single point.
All right, you know, you just showed those 4 states all within 1 point. You know, Fluff, who's working for the Harris campaign, says all 7 swing states are within 1 point. Have we ever seen so many crucial states so close?
No, I went back since 1972 at the final Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin polls. Ever been so tight? No, they have not. We have never had a year where any one of these states was within 1 point. And this year, John, all 3 of them are within 1 point. It's a historically close campaign, whether you look at the national polls or at the state polls, like we just did. And I think we just got united.
You know, the thing is that Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, you got to hold the line. You got to hold the line. So a Republican can get into the White House, and for Republicans to win the Senate and the House of Representatives. It's really important. Hold the line.
I'm saying it is close.
Arian, thank you.
Thank you, John.
With just 14 days until Election Day in America, let's bring in CNN political director David Chalian to tell us the one big thing they need to know today. David, what does that take away?
Well, you said it. It's too. This is a chat GPT for Airbnb. This new income assistant is trained to find you semi-passive income.
Well, you said it. It's 2 weeks to go until we count the votes. As you know, Sarah, more than 15 million people have already cast their vote in this election. The election is very much underway, but as voters are dialing into this race and prepare 2 weeks from now to watch, of course, right here on CNN, the vote returns unfold, it is important to take stock of where we are and what that means for when we'll know a result. And patience will be in order here. So just looking at the blue wall states, those 3 yellow battleground states you see there in the Great Lakes region, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. We know that in Michigan and Wisconsin, the big city population centers of Detroit and Michigan and Milwaukee, Wisconsin, they may not report all their vote until about 4 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday. Obviously, we'll need to see what that vote is to understand what the total state of
We know all about 4 o'clock in the morning counting in Detroit. Shit. I'll tell you, they are setting it up for you know, a magic trick. Get the polls close so it's easier to flip. Easier to flip the vote. That's what they're doing. The perception, I think what it is, the reality is Trump is winning in the polls more. They're trying to create a perception that's closer.
So maybe no projection on Tuesday night from those states if it is as close as polls suggest. And in Pennsylvania, they can't even process the mail ballots until Election Day, until the polls open. And so therefore, Sarah, given that half the electorate may end up voting by mail, voting early, it's going to take a little while for folks in Pennsylvania to process, unfold, flatten, and count all those.
That's okay. Back in the olden days, we didn't know who was the president until a few days after. So don't worry. We don't need to know who the president is, at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock in the morning, right? We don't need to know. We can wait a day. Just all I want is whoever's voting is a legal voter and that everyone's vote is counted. Now, 4 times, but once. All right? No illegal voting and no double counting and no flipping. That's all I'm asking for. Take your time and do it right.
We may not have a result there until Wednesday, perhaps. So this may take a while, given the fact that David Plouffe, the senior advisor to the Harris campaign, Sarah, says some of these states are going to be decided by less than a percentage point.
Which is crazy. People have to be prepared for that. A lot of people nervous about that as well, how long it might take to get a result. Harris is now sitting down with NBC for an interview that will air tonight. She also, of course, has a CNN town hall tomorrow, 9 p.m. with Anderson Cooper. What is she hoping to do with this and get out of this?
Her main goal in these final 2 weeks is to raise the stakes of this election in minds of voters, and I imagine that is what you're going to see her do. You noted, I think she's sitting down with Telemundo, she's sitting down with NBC News, and in each one of these interviews that she's doing, also going to do a CNN town hall tomorrow with us in suburban Philadelphia in Delaware County, Pennsylvania. Her main goal has been to draw a sharp contrast with Trump on every issue at every moment of the day. And I'd be surprised if that's not what comes through in these interviews she's doing today, because their goal is to remind voters of the negatives of Donald Trump, because we see in a lot of polling that a lot of voters remember the positive sense of the economy or of having more money in their pockets. And the Harris campaign believes a second Trump term could be far more dangerous, and they want to remind voters of that as they go into the voting booth.
We are in
the Democratic Party that's complaining about Trump is what they really are complaining about themselves. They just are projecting. It's a psychological problem. But please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. If you're a bodybuilder, if you are an athlete, or if you're just aging, all right, and you want to build muscle and maintain muscle mass and improve your recovery time, please go to my store and get Myotrol. Myotrol will help you build muscle, maintain muscle mass, but also improve the health of your mitochondria so you have more ATP. You need ATP to maintain muscle, all right? You need lots of it. And as we get older, it starts to go down. When you're an athlete, you're burning up your ATP because you're working out and you need to recover. You should be taking Myotrol. If you're a bodybuilder and you're trying to build muscle, take Myotrol, all right? Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, get Myotrol, increase your muscle mass, maintain your muscle mass, especially when you get older. This is important. And by doing this, what you're going to start seeing is that you're slowing down the aging process because you have more energy. You can move around and you can do other things, right? And when you stack this with stuff like strong antioxidants, then what you're going to start to notice that you're slowing down the aging process even more. So the ingredients that are on here, and you can read it on the screen here, but the ingredients in here, they bring down inflammation, they're they're also antioxidants, all right? So if you've been paying attention to the theme that I have here, is that you neutralize pathogens, bring down inflammation, take strong antioxidants. And by doing that, you're going to slow down the aging process. And then what you want to do is improve your ATP levels. So you have more energy. So you have a better endocrine system. So you have a better immune system. And you're mitigating some of the problems of just natural aging. So please go to my store and get the Myotrol. Talking about cellular metabolism, vitamin B complex is very important. You need vitamin B to help with your neurons. You also need vitamin B to help with your mitochondria. And vitamin B helps with the cellular metabolism. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the vitamin B complex. Improve your neuron health and improve your cellular metabolism and your energy levels. Multivitamin. This multivitamin is easy to digest. You need multivitamins as cofactors for enzymatic activity. So when you have these cofactors, your cells are going to perform better. Your tissues are going to perform better. So this should be part of your daily routine on top of the other supplements that I tell you to take to slow down the aging process, have longevity, and improve your immune system and your endocrine system, and improve your overall health. So please go to my store and get the multivitamin. Lastly, C60 is a very, very potent antioxidant. All right. You can get it in MCT coconut oil, avocado oil, or you can also get it in extra virgin olive oil. I have it in a 2 ounce, a 4 ounce, or an 8 ounce configuration. The higher the ounce configuration, a little bit of a discount for you to purchase, but it's up to you. You take a teaspoon of this a day, every day. It'll soak up those free radicals. This stacks really well with other supplements that I've mentioned throughout this broadcast. This is very potent. It'll soak up those free radicals, and you'll get this compound effect. When you take it every day, and you'll notice that you're aging slower. Now, part of the reason is that you're soaking up those free radicals, but you're also improving your mitochondrial health, and you're improving the health of your tissues. And so they're performing better. And if the health of those tissues are glands, if they're you're improving organ systems, then what's going to happen is those tissues and organ systems and glands are going to perform better. That means your endocrine system is going to perform better. That means your immune system is going to perform better because you have more ATP, you have less stress in those cells. So please go to my store and get the C60. In addition, C60 also helps with neurons. Why? Because what it does is it's soaking up those free radicals, but also boosting up the health of the mitochondria. And you need a lot of mitochondria in neurons to be able to create and shoot off those neurotransmitters, because neurons need a lot of energy. All right. That's why when you're thinking, thinking hard, or you're, doing complex things, that you're hungry, because you're burning a lot of energy. So please go to my store and get the C60. It'll soak up those free radicals, and by doing that, it's going to slow down the aging process, improve the tissue health.
Italian, it feels like it came so fast. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you. All right, with us now, CNN senior political analyst Ron Brownstein and Republican strategist and former RNC communications director Doug High. Gentlemen, Vice President Harris spent an entire day in the 3 blue wall states, a phrase I believe invented by Ron Brownstein. Nice to have you here. Yesterday with Liz Cheney, a Republican. The 3 most important states in this election, a whole day with just 2 weeks left. I want to play a little bit of that.
I certainly have many Republicans who will say to me, I can't be public. They do worry about a whole range of things, including violence, but they'll do the right thing. And I would just remind people, if you're at all concerned, you can vote your conscience and not ever have to say a word to anybody. And there will be millions of Republicans who do that on November 5th.
So that was the message sent, Ron. And the question is, to whom? Yeah. Is it just Republicans, or is it a little more complicated than that?
Yeah, look, I thought that was the message that was targeted precisely at the voters who are most available to her in the places where they are most available to her. If you kind of look at these 3 states that fell out of the blue wall in 2016 and Biden put them back in 2020, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, key to his improvement there was that he ran better than Hillary Clinton did in the big suburban counties, the 4 suburban counties outside Philadelphia, the WOW counties outside Milwaukee, Dane County, which is Madison, as well as Oakland County outside of Michigan, outside of Detroit. That's where she was. And in 2022, John, it's important to note the Democratic gubernatorial candidates generally ran better than Biden did. 2 years earlier, that was the first election after the Supreme Court rescinded the nationwide right to abortion. So, I'm just back from Oakland County myself. I think if you look at these places, they are the communities where Harris is most likely to improve on Biden's 2020 performance, particularly with college-educated white women, maybe also some of the non-college white women in those communities. And the Cheney appearances, I think, was precisely targeted to try to increase the permission structure, to slice away a few more points of those votes
maybe some among, people who identify as Republicans, but certainly among independent voters who have previously voted Republican most.
If Trump is so bad, why is Harris sucking in the polls? So 36 hours to the town hall, all right, or roughly, is so tomorrow at 9 p.m. there's a town hall on CNN with Kamala Harris. All right. I wonder how softball it's going to be because CNN doesn't like Trump. I'll tell you, I hope Trump wins so all these freaking ultra liberals just their head will explode in real time.
Economic issues, but find Trump a threat to their rights, their values, and are receptive to the message that he's a threat to democracy itself.
Think about that. A threat to democracy. All right. First of all, Republicans, just the term Republican means constitutional republic. All right. You have representatives, right? You have a republic, right? And the Democrats, they want mob rule. They want majority rules. Not only that, if you listen to what and Obama loves to, to align his stars with Franklin Roosevelt. Roosevelt wanted to stack the court. Roosevelt didn't like the Constitution putting guardrails on his New Deal policy. Doesn't that sound awfully familiar with Obamacare and with the Green New Deal? All right. And the Democratic Party wanting to stack the court with more justices. So this stacking of the court goes all the way back to Franklin D. Roosevelt. Oh, Democrat that wanted to continually be elected. See that? See how that is? They want to demonize the Republicans, saying that they want, to be never-ending king of America, right? But it's really the Democratic Party that wants to erode the constitutional freedoms because we're a constitutional republic. That basically means it doesn't matter what the mob rule thinks. It doesn't matter what the majority thinks. It's what the representatives are voting in, but also your civil liberties and property rights are protected by a constitution independent of what the majority thinks. That is why Republican policy is better off for this country than Democratic policy, because the Democrats want to erode the Constitution. The Democrats want to stack the court. They want mob rule. And then when they don't get it, or they're afraid that there may be conservative judges that are put on the Supreme Court, what do? They burn down the town. They try to demonize the individual and make up stories. They are mobsters. They act like mobsters. So this bullshit that Trump's going to be some sort of dictator. How's Trump going to be a dictator when we have balance of powers? Now, the Democratic Party wants to try to erode the Constitution. I mean, Pelosi said that. Listen to Waters and Pelosi when it came to, go and, create havoc in the streets and push and demonize Republicans and Trump. They act like mobsters. Now there's an added component here, because the national security state, the administrative state, has aligned itself with the Democratic Party, probably going as far back as Bill Clinton. All right. But the thing is they have aligned themselves with the Democratic Party in such a way where they have done things that they shouldn't have done, like hide the Hunter laptop investigation, demonize Trump on the fake dossier, go after him on lawfare. So they're afraid of some sort of retribution because they broke the law. They're afraid of retribution because these people that are ingrained in the national security state and the administrative state are going to be investigated. And so it's going to be spun on CNN as Trump, if Trump gets elected and the Republicans win Congress, the Senate and the House of Representatives. If the Republicans win, investigations are going to be had. CNN is going to say Trump and the Republicans are going after, enemies, their political enemies. But the reality of the situation is that the national security state thought that they superseded the Constitution. The national security state felt that they were above the law. The national security state aligned themselves with the Democratic Party to try to take down a presidential candidate physically and also politically. So the reality of the situation is that if Trump gets in and the Senate and the House can be controlled by the Republican Party, there's a high probability of investigations that will take place that will show that the Democratic Party and the national security state broke the law. And that's what they're afraid of.
The swing voters, the Haley voters, maybe from the primaries, who, by the way, weren't all registered Republicans.
Yeah. Look, you're talking about the same subset of voters, right? Some of them are registered Republicans, some of them are independent. And they're looking for, as Ron said, that permission structure to vote for Harris. But they also want to hear from Kamala Harris. So the events that Harris did yesterday with Liz Cheney speaks to some of their concerns. But these are the same voters who were saying to the Harris campaign.
How could these voters not have heard Kamala Harris? Either at the DNC convention, either her first interview on CNN that was a bomb, a record viewership on Fox, and all the sound bites that are going on when she's doing her rallies or town halls where she flops. You got to be a freaking hermit to not know what she represents. You got to be a freaking hermit to not know what her policies are or lack thereof.
We don't like Donald Trump, but we know who Donald Trump is. Who are you and what do you want to do? I think that the real vulnerability for the Harris campaign here is that age-old question of the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. You always go with the devil you know. They know Donald Trump. They need to get to know Kamala Harris, and time's ticking on that.
I want to ask you.
Yeah, and they know that Trump did a very good job as president for his first term, and he had to deal with a major crisis. We know what that crisis was. Thank you, Dr. Fauci.
And all of us who've covered politics for a long time, we swear an oath every 4 years that we're not going to focus overly on the early vote because one vote, today counts as much as one count on election day. But there are some interesting things happening in Nevada where they voted early for some time. Now, after 3 days of early voting, more Republicans have voted there than Democrats. This is not something that we have seen the last few elections. What is this a sign of? What are the possibilities here, Doug?
So I try and
thank you for asking, whatever his name is. Thank you for asking me. It's a sign that Trump has a higher probability of a total landslide. Assuming there's no impropriety with, little boxes that count ballots.
Usually vote early. And look at North Carolina as well. We see Republican numbers are up, Democratic numbers are down compared to 2020. But I'm not looking at the Republican or Democrat numbers. I'm looking at the unaffiliated voters in North Carolina. And what are they going to do? What have they done already? And over the next 2 weeks, where are they?
All right. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the supplements that I've mentioned throughout this broadcast. Zeolite is a great way to detoxify your body, get rid of heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals. It's a negatively charged molecule that will attach to positively charged chemicals, toxins, and heavy metals. And what that will do is it will allow you to excrete it through your urine in 6 to 8 hours. You can detoxify your body once or twice a year. The way you do that is take about 4 drops underneath your tongue, drink it with filtered water, and then just use up the bottle, through just your daily dosage, and do that once or twice a year. All right. Or you can do it throughout the whole year, every day, and just take a couple drops underneath your tongue, drink the filtered water, and use it year round. It's up to you. Some people detox their body once a year or twice a year or throughout the whole year. It's up to you. This zeolite you can take year round. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get those heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals out of your body. That includes forever chemicals. All right. And it's important to mitigate your exposure by making sure you filter your water and make sure that you eat properly. Stop eating those processed foods. And also, if you can, filter your air. Digestive enzyme complex, a great way to reduce the stress on your pancreas. As we get older, our pancreas start to age, and it needs a little bit of help. This digestive enzyme complex helps to break up proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids. So you're going to be able to absorb those nutrients better. It's going to have less stress on your pancreas. If you work out, if you're an athlete, you'll be able to recover quicker by taking the digestive enzyme complex, because you're breaking up those nutrients and absorbing them for recovery. In addition, this has bromelain in it, so it's fibrinolytic, and the proteolytic enzymes that are in here will break up glycoproteins. That's really important during that 2020 crisis, in the aftershock of the 2020 crisis. This is also synergistic with nattokinase. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the digestive enzyme complex. You should be taking it every day, especially if you're older, because you don't want to stress your pancreas. NAC. I've added this to my daily routine. Why? Because the longevity gurus, the anti-aging crowd, have been stacking with NAC. The reason why it works is it brings up your glutathione levels, so it soaks up free radicals. This is a different way to soak up those free radicals. It's synergistic with C60, because C60 is soaking it up in one way, NAC is soaking it up in a different way. So it's important to attack and soak up as much free radicals as you can. In addition, this will help to reduce anxiety, and NAC helps to detoxify your liver and your kidney, especially when you take acetaminophen. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and take NAC every day. Very, very important. Let me repeat myself. NAC is something you should be taking every day. Add it to your stack, and you're going to be able to really get a supercharge out of the C60 by stacking it. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Thank you for listening. And if you'd like to help support my work, make sure that you go to my website, and you can donate through Stripe, PayPal, or Buy Me a Coffee, or you can be a paid member on my Patreon channel. I have thousands of videos for free. I find it is important to inform the public on what's going on in the financial markets and what that means for you, what's going on with politics or international affairs and how that may affect you, and how to improve your health. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and help support my work. Thank you for listening, and have a nice day.